back to another video. So today we are, well, I'm gonna attempt to make this beautiful crochet top that I found on Pinterest, and I've been eyeing it out for literally over a year. I think I saw it last summer. That's how long I've been looking at it for. But anyway, I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do it so you can see kind of how to do it, because it's not really my design, so I'm just gonna wing it like I usually do. But yeah, so I'm just gonna tackle the task and see what comes of it. But I really think I know how I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna do granny squares around the bust, and then work front panel, back panel, then do the arm sleeves, and then, why did I say arm sleeves? Do the arms, and then do the bell sleeve. I think that's such a cute detail. But anyways, while we're doing the granny squares, I think this is going to be the best opportunity to show you the tips and tricks which I have learned over the years of doing thousands of granny squares. So stay tuned for some tips and tricks on how to make this beautiful top, because it's gonna be gorgeous, and if I can make it, you can make it, anyone can make it. So we're gonna do it together and we're gonna see how it works. I'm so excited. So to start with, I've got my 5 colors that I want for the granny square. So I've got beige, yellow, blue, purple, and then white. This is the dark purple. And they're all kind of different weights. So this muscat yarn is a different weight to these Paris and cotton. So I wouldn't stress too much about the weights of the yarn. And then I'm also using a 2.5mm crochet hook, just because I prefer using a smaller needle than what the label recommends. Just because I find it goes quicker and it's easier to grip the yarn, but it's up to you, it's your preference. So to start the square, I'm gonna make a slip knot. I prefer doing this method to make a magic ring, because actually it's not a magic ring, I don't know what it is, but a magic ring I really do not like working with. So I chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go into the first chain to make a slip stitch. So that's the little circle we are working with. That chain 4 makes that circle, and then you just join with a slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to make 2 double crochets. And why I say 2 is because that chain 2 counts as 1 double crochet. So we in total should have 3 double crochets, so 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to make 3 more double crochets. So this is our first row, and we're basically just making the corners for the next row to work into. I don't know, I hope that makes sense. So as you can see, this is just imagine a square. This would be your bottom right corner of the square. Now we're going to make the top right corner of the square. So we just chain 2, then we do 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then we chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to make the next corner of the square. So you can see bottom left, bottom right, top right, 1, 2, 3. So you can see we only have 3 corners now, 1, 2, 3. So what you have to do to get that next corner is you have to chain 2, and then we are finishing this first row, and then we're going to slip stitch into the chain 2 that we did at the beginning of the row. So you go through the stitch, then you catch the yarn, and then you pull through both loops. So that's your slip stitch. And then you're going to cut off the yarn, and then pull the yarn through the stitch to fasten off the row. So what I like to do is usually I just crochet the yarn away, and then you don't have to deal with the loose strands at the end of your work. You can either choose to crochet it away or use an embroidery needle and crochet, well, not crochet it, sew it through the stitches so it's like invisible. But I don't have that on me right now, so this is the method we are resorting to. You don't have to crochet away all of it. You can just chop off the yarn once you've crocheted a few away. Okay. Now we're gonna grab our next color, which is yellow. And I'm gonna begin with a standing double crochet. So that's, you make a slip knot, and then you place a slip knot on your needle, and then you wrap the yarn around your needle and hold that wrap down, and you insert it through the one corner. So you can go anywhere you want. I'm just going here, and then you catch the yarn and you pull through 2 loops, and then you catch the yarn and you pull through 2 loops again. So that's one double crochet, or standing double crochet. So you make 3, and then because we're in a corner, you have to increase. So you chain 2, and then you make 3 double crochets in the corner again. 1, 2, 3. And then you go again, you work to the next corner. So no chain, nothing. I know most granny square patterns use a chain. I just find that it's too gappy if I make a chain. But that may also be because I have quite a loose tension. So that's 3 double crochets, and then we have to chain 2. 1, 2, and then do 3 double crochets into that corner again. 1, 2, 3. So you can see the corners coming along. Go 1, move on to the next corner, 2, 3, and you chain 2 because we're in the corner, remember, and we make 3 more double crochets. Then we do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and do 3 double crochets again, because that is our corner. 1, 2, 3. And then what you do is, you can see this is basically your second row done. So what you do is you go into that standing double crochet at the top there where that knot is. I don't know if you can see, there's literally a stitch there. So I just catch the needle, catch the yarn, pull it through both loops, and then get your scissors, cut off the yarn, pull it through the slip stitch, and then fasten it off. Okay, but you can see there's two strands on either side there. So what I like to do is make a knot. So that's 1, and then 2, just to secure it extra tight. And then I just crochet each strand of yarn both ways like this. So pretty simple. I'm not going to show you me crocheting away the yarn just because it's self-explanatory. So yeah, and then you get your next color. Okay, so I wasn't really feeling the yellow, so I've changed to orange. So to start row 3, you're gonna do a standing double crochet and then wrap the yarn around your needle to start standing double crochet. I'm going into the corner. You can go in anywhere you want, but then we're going to go into the gap that we created with the chain 2 from the previous row, catch the yarn and then pull it through. Then catch the yarn, pull through 2 loops, catch the yarn, pull through 2 loops. So I don't know if you noticed with the standing double crochet, you literally go into the stitch as if you're doing a double crochet already. So that always helps to imagine it like that. Then you do 1, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets, and then you chain 2, 1, 2, because we're in the corner, remember, so we have to do 3 more double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and then you can see this isn't a corner, right? It's a gap. So you do 1, you only do 3 double crochets, so we're not increasing in the gap. And then we are at a corner, so you increase, so you make 3 double crochets, 2, 3, then you chain 2, and then you make 3 double crochets again. So I don't know if you can notice the pattern. So each row you do, you increase. So that means, well, you increase in the corners, which means that you get more and more gaps as you go. So the pattern is literally, for granny square, increasing in the corners, and when you're not in a corner, you're in the side of the square, and you only do 3 double crochets. So you can see corner, gap, corner, so gap, corner, gap, well, side. So, and then when you're in your corners, you increase, so you do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. In the gap, you only do 3 double crochets. So I'm not going to do this whole square with you. I'm just going to tell you to increase in this corner. So do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 double crochets again. Then in this side, you do only 3 double crochets. In this corner, you do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 double crochets. And then this last side gap, you do only 3 double crochets, and then you join with a slip stitch to end the row. And then what you do next is, okay, so we're done with the row. And like the previous row, you go into that standing double crochet. You just get into it properly, and then you slip stitch, so you catch the yarn and you bring it through both the loops. So then we're gonna cut the yarn and then make a double knot and then weave away the yarn. So let me just, and I'm gonna weave away the yarn, and we're gonna start with our next color. The next color we are going for is this dark purple, and once again we're gonna start with a standing double crochet. So you make a slip stitch, then you catch the slip stitch onto your needle, then wrap the yarn around your needle as if you're going to do a double crochet. And then this time I'm starting into a side gap or side stitch gap, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to do 3 double crochets because we are in the side, not a corner. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then there's another side gap. So we're going to do 3, 1, 2, 3 double crochets, and then I'm gonna make increase because we're now at the corner. So you can identify the corner by that chain 2 and those 3 double crochets, and you can see that each gap is before. I don't know if that makes any sense. And then now you can see there's a gap. So we're in a side stitch. So this is now we moved on to the side of the square. So you do 3 double crochets in this gap. We still got to do that third stitch. And then another 3 double crochets because we're still working the side. 1, 2, 3, and then you can see that corner, so we increase. So I'm not going to do the entire square with you, but I'll tell you what to do. So you can see corner, so you do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. You can see that's the side of the square, so 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets, and then oops, we run into a corner, so we have to increase. So we do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then now you can see that's the side of the granny square. So that gap, 3 double crochets, that gap, 3 double crochets, and then oops, ran into a corner again. So we got 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then we finish. So you'll make a slip stitch into that standing double crochet stitch that we did in the beginning. So I'll meet you once we're there. Standing double crochet stitch that we did to start the row, and then pull through and pull through again. Then cut off the yarn, and we're gonna fasten off the yarn, and then tie a knot, weave away the yarn, and then begin the next row. So I'll meet you once I've completed this little sewing away the yarn. So now we're gonna start with our next color. I'm using this off-white. It's by Vinnie's Colors, so it's a bit different. So we're gonna do a slip knot like we've been doing for the other rows. Catch the slip knot on the needle, wrap the yarn around your needle as if you're going to do a double crochet, insert your needle through the gap. I'm going into the side stitch. You can go into the corner, whichever your heart desires. So because we're in a side stitch, remember we're only doing 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to move on to the next gap. So each row, I don't know if you've noticed, there becomes more and more gaps. So like this row, we got 3 gaps. In the previous row, there were 2 gaps. And in the previous row, there were none. And then the first row, there were no gaps. So we only had corners. So that's what you do in each row. And that's why we increase in the corners to get more gaps. So your square gets bigger and bigger. And so we're into a corner now. 1, 2, 3. And then chain 2, 1, 2, and then 3 double crochets again. 1, 2, 3. And then we move on to the next side gap. So I'll just talk you through this. So we've got 3 side gaps, 1, 2, 3, then a corner. So you'll do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3 side gaps. So in the side gaps you'll only do 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets. Then you'll increase in the corner, do 3 double crochets in each side gap. So there will be 3. Then there's a corner, and then so that means you'll increase, and then you'll join with a slip stitch to finish the row. So I'll meet you once that's done. And then we're just gonna finish this row by making a slip stitch into that standing double crochet that we did in the beginning. So I've got all my squares here. I've done that. We are going to line each of the squares in this like mesh stitch, mermaid mesh stitch, which is it's so simple. It's basically just chain 5 and then slip stitch into every gap. But I'll show you how to do that. I will cut to the mesh stitch now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a border on each square with a mesh stitch. So each mesh stitch is basically I chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm just going to grab this yarn and crochet over it, then slip stitch into that next gap, then chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and slip stitch into the next gap. And I'm just going to show you what to do for the corner because it's pretty much the same thing. We're not increasing in this row. 4, 5, and then I'm just going to slip stitch, then 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then slip stitch. So you can see that little slip stitch there, that will be important for the next row because you'll do an increase. Anyway, I'll meet you once we have completed this because it's basically 5 chains, slip stitch, 5 chains, slip stitch, 5 chains, slip stitch, 5 chains, then slip stitch into each gap. So it's pretty simple and I'll meet you once we've done that. And then we've done our last chain 5 there, and I'm just basically gonna slip stitch into that stitch there. I don't know why I went through that stitch. Into that gap you slip stitch, and then chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then slip stitch into that gap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then into the gap you go there. So this creates this like mermaidy looking stitch, which is fabulous. And then you can see there's 2 either side of that corner. So I'm just going to chain 5, 1, 2, 4, 5, and in that corner slip stitch, I'm just going to shove my needle through there and I'm going to slip stitch into there because I'm trying to make this a corner. So this is my version of an increase, and then slip stitch. So you can see you've got your double duties there with your, I don't even know if it's an increase, but I try to make it more squarey. But anyway, and then obviously you'll just chain 5, then slip stitch into each gap, and then when you get to this corner you basically repeat. So you do your slip stitch, then chain 5, and then slip stitch into that slip stitch, chain 5, and then slip stitch into that gap to create this little thing here, like that. So I'll meet you once the square is completed. And then we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then slip stitch into that beginning stitch that we did there. And then we're done. Although I would have recommended slip stitching into there to start, because now we've got this funny looking thing, but it's fine. And then you'll just cut off your yarn and then start on with the next squares. And you're going to want to line all of your squares in this pattern. So yeah. So once we have done our 2 rows of blue, we're basically going to do the same stitch but in yellow. So I'm just going to talk you through it. So I just start my row wherever and then catch the slip stitch through and then chain 5, 1, 2, 4, 5, and just carry on with this mermaidy mesh stitch. And then I'll meet you once we have completed the row, and then you just go into every gap, slip stitch into every gap. So you chain 5, then slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you slip stitch. So you just continue this until you have done the row. And then we just end the row by going into that slip stitch with a slip stitch. And then you cut off your yarn, then fasten off your yarn and then weave it away, or you can leave it over because we'll crochet it, like leave it out and we'll crochet over it later. Then we're just gonna slip stitch to end off the row. Then we're gonna grab a scissors, okay, so I've done a yellow border around all my squares. I've done on 6 squares so far, but to start the front or back panel, what you're going to do is you're going to grab your square at the corner, so whichever corner you like. So you first start with a slip stitch, and then you catch the slip stitch through the gap, and then just pull the yarn through, and then you make 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then where you did the slip stitch in the previous row, you're just going to slip stitch into that. So you just slip stitch, and then you make 5 single crochets into these chain 5. So I'm just crocheting, if you can see, into the gap. I'm not actually going into any of the chains, but I am making 5, 3, 4, 5. And then also here's another tip: hold your yarn to the left so you can crochet over it instead of having to weave it away. Then we slip stitch into that slip stitch from the previous row, and then you just continue this. So you're gonna go up this corner, down that side, and then down that side, and I'll meet you once we're there. We're leaving this bottom side unworked. So I'm just slip stitching into that last stitch there in the corner, and as you can see, we've started in that corner and worked our pattern, which is 5 single crochets and slip stitch into that slip stitch that we did in the previous row. And then you do that only for 3 corners of the square. And then what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1, and you're going to grab your next square, and you're going to get the corner. So wherever the corner may be, I'm going for that corner there. You're gonna just grab the corner, and then you do 1, 2, 3. No, you do 2 single crochets, and in the third one you find the third single crochet on the other square and you slip stitch into that, and then you do 2 double crochets to finish off your work, because I don't know how to explain this so it can make sense. So you've got 2 or 5, and then you have 2, you go into that middle one, so you have 2 on either side of that stitch where you join, and then slip stitch into that middle stitch, and then you go 1, 2, the slip stitch into that third stitch on the other square counts as 3, and then 4, 5. So do you see the pattern? So that's how it should look, and then we slip stitch into that slip stitch, and then you do 1, 2, and then slip stitch into that third stitch onto that third stitch in the opposite square. So if you want to count 1, 2 in that third stitch, slip stitch, and then slip stitch. So you're going to do this up until the very top corner, so until both corners are joined. So it will be like that, and then you work this way across this side and then down this side, and then once you've done that you grab your next square and you join it how you're joining this. So I'll join a couple more with you, and then I'll meet you with at the top here, because it's pretty simple, it's just the same thing. And then we really slip stitch, then we start 1, 2, and then in that third stitch, so you can see 1, 2, 3. I just place it wherever really, because it pretty much lines up with that third stitch. Then you slip stitch, because that is basically the third stitch, and then you go 3, 5, 4, 5, then slip stitch, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then slip stitch. So I've just joined them at the corners now, done 2, then slip stitch, then 2, and then we slip stitching into that slip stitch.
And then we just joined at the corner there, we did 2, then slip stitch, then 2, and then slip stitch into that slip stitch, and then now we're doing 5 single crochets and then slip stitch. So you'll do that across and then down, and then you'll join like you did.
So as you can see, we've worked our way up, across, down, joint while going up, then worked across, down, then joint with the last square, then worked our way and joint across while going up, and then worked our way across, down, and then literally 5 single crochets in every gap like we did for the rest of the stuff. And then you just join at the end with a slip stitch into that last stitch there, and then what you do is you cut off your yarn, then pull the yarn through the stitch, little loop we have there to fasten it off. And then what you're going to do, we're going to start with the neckline, the upper part of the top. So okay, so now we're starting with the neckline of the top, and I'm just starting on the other end even though we fastened off here, because if I started here I'd have to flip my work around, which I don't really want to do, so I'm starting at the other end. So I'm going into that third stitch of that corner, if you can see. And then I'm going to catch the yarn and just pull it through. And then I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, or 4. And then slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then skip 5 stitches. And then basically chain 5 and then skip 4 stitches, and then in that 5th stitch slip stitch. So yeah, basically this is it. And then I'll meet you, you just continue doing this until you get to that end corner there in that 3rd stitch, and I'll meet you there. So this is what it kind of should look like. And then what we're gonna do is chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Flip your work around, and then slip stitch into that 1st gap. So this is basically just a mesh stitch. 2, 3, 4, 5. Slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slip stitch. And you're going to want to repeat this for 6 or 7 rows, just depending how long you want it. So it may vary according to your length, you know, so it's very customizable. And then when you get to that end, you'll slip stitch, chain 6 or 7, flip your work around, and then just continue. So it's pretty simple. And then when you're done that, it should look like this. So this is the neckline part, and then once you've done the neckline, it's completely up to you. And then once we've done that, I'm going to talk you through how to do this like stitch at the bottom and then this border, and then I'll meet you once we have completed this green mesh stitch. Actually no, yeah, you put the slip knot on your needle, then go through that 3rd stitch in the corner there, so you can see your square. In the 3rd stitch, you just catch the yarn, put it through, and then put it through again, and then you chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skip 4 stitches, and in that 5th stitch, so 1, 2, 3, 4, in that 5th stitch, slip stitch. So this is merely the same as what you're doing here. We're doing the mesh stitch, and you'll do how, and this part will go over your stomach, so you'll do however many rows you need. I'm not going to tell you how many because it will vary according to how long you want it, how long your torso is, so you'll do however many rows you want. If you want it super cropped, you might not even want to do this. You might want to do maybe even 1 or 2 rows. It's completely up to you. But I think I'm going to go for like 10 or 12 rows or even more. Okay, so I've completed however many rows I needed. I think I've done like 9 or 10. And then, well, 9 or 10 rows of the green. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to start with the like new colors. So I'm starting with this light purple, and I'm going to make a slip stitch. And then we're going to make a standing double crochet into that corner stitch. So standing double crochet is you make a slip stitch and you put it on your needle. Then you wrap the yarn around your needle as if you're going in to make a double crochet, but you hold that wrap down with your forefinger. Then you insert your needle through the stitch, and then you catch the yarn on the other side. And then you can see you have 3 loops. I'm just holding that down so it doesn't unravel. Then you pull through 2 loops, and then you pull through 2 loops again. So that's your standing double crochet. And then we're going to make 3 double crochets in every gap. So 1, 2, 3, 1. So pretty simple. And I'm not giving you exact measurements and how many stitches you should have, because it will vary according to how long you have it. And to be honest, it wouldn't make or break the project if your stitches are off. You just don't want to have too many that it will flare out, or too little that it will increase. But yeah, I found that 3 stitches in every gap works absolutely perfectly. It's bliss. So yeah, I'll meet you once I have completed this row to the other side. Okay, so you can see 3 double crochets in every gap. Then we're going to chain 1, 2, because 2 chains count for 1 length of a double crochet. 3, 4, 5, because chain 3 to make up for the 3 double crochets that we are going to miss to crochet into that gap. So we're going to double crochet in between the gap, just do double crochet, and then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip 3 stitches, and then make a double crochet, then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip 3 stitches, double crochet. So that's the pattern for this row. So to start, chain 5, then skip 3 stitches, double crochet, chain 3, double crochet, chain 3, skip 3 stitches, double crochet. Continue this until you get to the other side. Okay, so we've completed this row. Now we're going to start the next row, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3. So chain 3, flip your work around, then do 2 double crochets. Why 2? Because that chain 2 counts as 1 double crochet. So you have 1, 2, 3, then you chain 1, 2, 3, skip that gap, and then go into that gap. That's why we chain 3, to make up for those 3 stitches essentially that we are missing. 1, 2, 3. Chain 3, 2, 3, skip that gap, work into that next gap. So basically the pattern for the next, well, for my top, for the next 4 or 5 rows, I'm doing this stitch. You can do however many rows you want. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3. But I'll meet you at the end of this row to start the next row. So I've ended with 3 double crochets, so we're going to chain 5, because we're going to skip those 3 to start to work into that gap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the chain 2 obviously to make 1 double crochet, the 3 to compensate for these stitches that we are skipping, and then work 3 double crochets into that gap. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip those 3 stitches, and then work into this gap. 1, 2, 3, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, work 3 double crochets. So you can make however many rows you want of this pattern. But yeah, I'll meet you once mine is complete. So I've completed 3 rows of this pattern from here to here, as you can see. But now we are going to give the top a little bit of bedazzle. Like, we're just going to finish it off properly with a dark purple. So I'm going to make a slip stitch, and of course start with a standing double crochet. So yarn around your needle as if you're going to make a double crochet, and then I'm gonna go into, so I'm gonna flip my work around firstly, and then I'm gonna go into that very first stitch there where you ended off your work, and then make a standing double. And here's a tip: instead of having to sew away your yarn once you're done, I just hold it to the left and crochet over it. So double crochet in every gap. Well, first every stitch, so you can see 3 double crochets, because 1, 2, 3, and then you've got your chain 3 here, right? So you make 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then you got your 3 double crochets here, so you will do double crochet, double crochet, double crochet. And then also with regards to the stitch, I'm not going into the stitch, I'm just crocheting around the stitch like we did there. So where you have your double crochets, you just crochet into the actual double crochet stitch. So like that, and under both of these. And then here you just crochet over the stitch, so just catch the yarn and pull through. So I'll meet you once we've completed this row. So I've completed this row with double crocheting in every stitch, and then into, well, like over the chain. And then now we're going to complete our last row of the bottom of the top. So we're going to chain 2, flip your work around, and then you're just going to make a double crochet into every single gap. So that's pretty self-explanatory. So go into every stitch. I must say the stitches are quite difficult to see since I am making, well, I'm using a darker color. So yeah, I'll meet you once I've completed this row. Okay, so we're just finishing off here, doing a double crochet into that last stitch, and then I'm going to cut off the yarn, and then we're going to start, I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. So we've got our front and back panel here. So I'm going to start with the back panel, and we're going to start with the neckline. So you can choose whichever colors you want, but I'm going to use this orange and dark purple because I can't decide whether I want to do the neckline in dark purple or orange, so I'm doing both. So for the front, I'm going to be doing this dark purple, and then for the back of the neckline, I'll be doing this orange. So I'm going to take the back panel, and we're going to make a slippy stitch. I mean a slip knot, and then yarn around your needle as if you're going to make a double crochet, and then make 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3 in that first gap, and then in the second gap 3 double crochets. So basically 3 double crochets in every single gap until you get to the other side, and then I'll meet you there. Well, you'll cut off the yarn, and then I'll meet you once we have, well, we're going to start the next row, well, the next panel, the neckline for the next panel, because in the next neckline we will be joining the 2 panels together. So yeah, so I've completed the double crochets, 3 double crochets in every gap. Now we're going to take our front panel. So you're going to want to have it the right way round, so you can tell if it's the right way round. The granny squares seem a bit different, like they're more textured on the other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, so I'm actually first going to line our front panel, our back panel backwards, like wrong way facing towards us, and then this back panel, the front panel, right way towards us. So what we're going to do now is we're going to crochet to join the neckline. So you're going to want to leave an opening. You can have it wide or long, but I'll explain. Not wide or long, you can have the opening like narrow or wide, depending on your preference. So I'll just show you how I'm going to do it. So obviously you start with a standing double crochet, slip stitch, and then we do in the corner, we do standing double, and then we do, before I continue with the other two, I'm just going to go into that next, the first double crochet in the opposite panel and do a slip stitch. Then we're going to make 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and then here's the magic. This is where the joining begins. You slip stitch into the gap between the 3 double crochets. So slip stitch and pull through. Then you make 3 double crochets into this gap, 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch and pull through. Then 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch. So this is how we join the 2 panels together on the neckline, and you'll do however many rows to join depending on how wide or narrow you want your neckline. So I think I want mine pretty mediocre, so I think I'll join up until like there, maybe for like 10 rows or like 9. I'll just have to see. I'll try it on as I go along. So you might just have to do the same too. Yeah, it will vary for everyone. So yeah, try it on as you go along, and then make up your mind. So I've joined for 7 double crochets, 7 groups of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then now what you do is you just make 3 double crochets in every single gap until you get from 7 gaps from here. So like what you can do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mark off 7 gaps. I'm just sticking a pin and a lid in there because I don't have a stitch marker, and then that's when you'll start joining again. So what we'll do now is just make 3 double crochets in every gap, no joining. So I'll meet you once I've got to the stitch marker. So I'm at the stitch marker now. I'm just gonna push it through the stitch, or you can take out your stitch marker. I'm just pushing it because I don't have anything else. So 3, and then mark off 7 on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'm gonna slip stitch in there. Then you do your 3. One, 2, 3, and then slip stitch, and you'll just repeat this until both sides are joined. Then I'll meet you to show you what it kind of looks like on. So we're basically just going to mirror what we did on the other side. So I've only done 2 here, so I'm just gonna slip stitch into that top stitch. I mean that last stitch there, and then just finish with 1 double crochet. And then I'm gonna cut off the yarn. Okay, so here you can see, here's the neckline. And this is, you can see the neckline, this is how it fits. If you want it wider, do less. If you want it narrower, do more, but I don't think you'd be able to stick your head through it. So this is what it kind of looks like, but I think I'm actually going to take it out because I'm not vibing with this dark purple. So I might either go for this light blue or orange or beige. I'll just see how I feel. Okay, so what's going to happen now is you're going to flip your work inside out, and we're going to crochet, we'll single crochet the sides together. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with this corner here with the dark purple, and then I'm going to just literally single crochet my way up, and then I'm going to change color when I get here, and then change color when I get here, and then just leave it as is until there. And then the distance you crochet, you single crochet, this will determine, like up until where you single crochet will determine how big your armhole is. So if you want a small armhole, crochet further up. If you want a smaller armhole, a larger armhole, crochet like further down. I'm having quite a large armhole, so it kind of looks more bell sleeve. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like it flares out. But what you could also do is make it small, and then when you get to your elbow, when making the sleeve, you can just start increasing to make the sleeve larger. But anyway, I'm just going to kind of just show you how I'm doing this. So take the purple yarn, make a slip stitch, and literally line up the corners, and you just like you throw in single crochets. And we're in our last stitch there with the purple, so we're gonna cut it off, and I'm gonna grab the green, and I'm just gonna catch it through the purple and finish off that stitch there. And I'm just holding all the straight yarn to the left, and I'm going to crochet over it. And yeah, here I'm just throwing in single crochets because it is quite gappy, like it's not, there are no defined stitches. So I'm going to do this all the way until here. Just past the second square, the second loop on these squares. So I'll meet you once I've done that. And then I'm just going to cut off the yarn here, finish off that last single crochet, and then just pull the yarn through and then fasten it off. And then I'm gonna weave away the yarn. And then I'm going to try it on and show you what I mean by the arm, like crocheting further up or make the armhole smaller, and then if you crochet further down or make the arm bigger. But I'm not going to be so exact with this because you can do it how you want and how you want your sleeves. So yeah. Okay, so here's the top on. I've been working on this side off camera just to like test, you know. But if you can see here, if this is down, like further down, if you work maybe until there, your arm, the hole that you'll be working with will be larger because you'll have more stitches to work with. But if you want it closer, you crochet further up. So your sleeve will be a bit tighter. Like as you can see, this is pretty loose and I've done no increasing in this whatsoever. So the other option is if you have your tight sleeve and then like elbow length, you start working like 2 stitches in one gap, and that will cause it to go bell, which would be like quite loose like this. So it would be like tight and then flare out, which would also be really cool, but I'm just not having that. So that's another option. But basically now I'm just going to explain to you how to do the sleeve. So now we're going to start the mesh stitch for the sleeves. So I've got my slip stitch and I'm just going to put it on my needle. And I'm just going to insert it into a stitch there. And then pull it through the slip stitch. So it's kind of like a, yeah, basically slip stitching. Then you're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like we've been doing the whole time. And now we're just making that foundation row, as you can see, because there's no slip stitch to work in. But once we get here, we'll just carry on with our normal mesh stitch, because there's actually like the chains you can work into. But anyway, so we're going to skip 1, 2, and then in that third stitch, slip stitch. Then you chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skip 5 stitches, so including that slip stitch, so 1, 2, 3, not 5 stitches, skip 3 stitches. So you can get that mesh. Although, you're going to want to have to do, oh no, I skipped 5 stitches on the other side, so we're skipping 5 stitches, not 3. Whatever you do on this side needs to match with the other side, so otherwise your sleeves will be very different sizes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that 5th stitch, slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and that 5th stitch, slip stitch. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we crocheted up and on there, and I'm just going to show you what I'm doing for this mesh. It's basically what we've been doing the entire time. 1, 2, 4, 5, then slip stitch into the mesh stitch. 1, 2, 4, 5, slip stitch into the next mesh stitch. So you can see it's just continuing but in a different direction, because that's going up and then I'll be going sideways. And then you're going to do this all the way around until we are here again, and I'll meet you once we're here. And for reference, I'm working with 26 holes, well 26 stitches or gaps. So yeah, you can do more or less. But yeah, I'm just thought I should let you know what I'm working with. And then now that we just continue with the mesh stitch. I forgot to tell you there, you just join with a slip stitch. And then you chain 5 and then you slip stitch. And then you chain 5 and then you slip stitch. Chain 5 and slip stitch. So 4, 5 and then slip stitch. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, then slip stitch. Then you repeat this for however many rows you want. Yeah, and then you can change colors, but once I'm done this, I'm going to change this. Yeah, I'm going to change colors, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So here's the other sleeve that I did. I'm not finished it yet, but I'm gonna mix and match the opposite sleeve. So this sleeve, I'm gonna do less rows in white. So I'm gonna do like up to here in white on this opposite sleeve that I'm working on at the moment. And then instead of using blue and purple, I'm gonna go for, I'm gonna use this yellow, and I'm going to do a couple rows in this light purple stitch, and then I'm going to switch back to yellow. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll bring you along the way. I'll literally just talk you through it because it's so simple. Okay, so I'm just going to show you. I'm not joining each row with a slip stitch. I'm just going round and round in circles just because I think a slip stitch would make it look funny. So I'm just joining like that, and then I just continue like normal, like we're pretending that there is no like row that joins them. I don't know if that makes any sense. 5, and then like I just carry on, like I kind of forget that I'm joining, you know. So we're just gonna, like when we do the next row, we'll just crochet over that and then just carry on like normal. So for the sleeves, you'll make however many rows you need. I didn't specify as to how many I did because each of our arms are different lengths, so it would be different for each person. So do however many rows you need. And then I just wanted to point out that in this sleeve I did this like mesh stitch, which is the same, it's the same stitch that I did for the front and back panel over here. So you are welcome to just like you can go back in the video and just see how I did this if you want to do this, but if you don't want to do it, just do normal mesh stitch like this. The sleeve I did the normal mesh stitch and I think it still looks fabulous. So yeah, and I didn't end up using all the colors that I said I was going to use in the tutorial. I just went for what I was feeling, and this is what we came to. So I really do hope you found this tutorial helpful. So if you need any help, please feel free to message me on Instagram. I answer all my DMs, so